4 weeks ago, at my husband's family barbecue, his sister said something I will never forget. If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. They thought it was just a joke. They thought I'd laugh it off, like I always had. They were wrong. I simply raised my hot dog and said, "Challenge accepted." That night, I vanished from their lives. And what happened after that, when I reappeared a year later, changed the way they saw me forever. But to understand how I could walk away so easily, you need to know how I spent 7 years surviving as an outsider in that family. My name is Emily Crawford, or it was before I became Emily Ashford. 32 years old. 7 years married to Trevor Ashford, heir to Ashford Capital Management in Savannah, Georgia. Old money. 4 generations. The kind of family where your last name opens doors before you even speak. I wasn't born into that world. I grew up in Macon, 2.5 hours away. My father fixed cars. My mother cleaned houses for families exactly like the Ashfords. I worked my way through Georgia Southern University on a hospitality management scholarship. I was good at what I did, confident, clear about my future. Then I met Trevor at the country club where I worked part-time behind the bar. He was charming, attentive. He saw me, or so I thought. Within a year, we were married. And for 7 years, I slowly disappeared. But the real breaking point came 4 weeks ago. The annual Ashford family summer barbecue. It was always the same, 35 to 40 guests, their 6-acre waterfront estate, manicured lawns, imported hydrangeas, casual wealth that doesn't need to announce itself. I'd spent the entire week preparing. Menu coordination, floral arrangements, table settings, making sure every detail met what Diane, my mother-in-law, called Ashford standards. That Saturday morning, Trevor left early for golf with his father, Harrison. "You'll handle everything, right?" he said, kissing my forehead absently. "You always do." I did. I always did. By noon, I'd been at the estate for 4 hours, setting up, adjusting, perfecting. Diane had walked through twice, making small corrections to my work, moving a centerpiece 3 inches left, swapping my linen napkins for hers. "This isn't quite Ashford standard, dear," she'd said. Not unkindly, just matter of fact, like I was staff receiving feedback. I'd brought my grandmother's peach cobbler. The recipe was handwritten on a card yellowed with age. It took me 3 hours to make. The one dessert that had received genuine compliments in past years. I set it carefully on the dessert table. Within minutes, Diane moved it to the back. Veronica's store-bought tiramisu took center stage. 1:30 p.m., the main table on the patio. I was seated between Trevor's elderly Uncle Frank, who was hard of hearing, and an empty chair reserved for Veronica, Trevor's younger sister. She arrived late, as always, with her fiancé, Justin Canterbury, tech entrepreneur. 6 months together, already planning a wedding. "We just booked the mansion on Forsyth," Veronica announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The most exclusive venue in Savannah." The table erupted in congratulations. Diane beamed. "Veronica has such exquisite taste. The venue rental alone is $25,000. I picked at my potato salad. There was a lull in conversation. A rare opening. I took it. "The mansion is beautiful," I offered, keeping my voice light. "I actually helped coordinate a wedding there last year. If you need vendor recommendations," Veronica cut me off mid-sentence. "Oh, Emily." She smiled that saccharine smile. "That's sweet. But we're working with premier vendors." Pause. "Not the budget level you usually deal with." Light laughter rippled around the table. My face flushed, but I tried again. "I just thought my experience might be helpful." "Honestly," Veronica interrupted, with a theatrical sigh, "if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." She waved her hand dismissively. We'd still have a perfect wedding. Dad would still run his business. Trevor would still... Another wave. Everything would be fine. The table erupted, not in shock, not in my defense, in laughter. Diane tittered behind her napkin, like it was the cleverest thing she'd heard all day. Harrison coughed into his fist, grinning. Even Uncle Frank, who probably hadn't heard the actual comment, joined in because everyone else was laughing. And Trevor, my husband. Trevor chuckled into his beer. Something inside me went very still, very quiet, very clear. I didn't cry, I didn't yell. I didn't stand up and make a scene they could later use as evidence of my emotional instability. Instead, I raised my glass of sweet tea. I locked eyes with Veronica, and I said, clearly enough for the entire table to hear, "Challenge accepted." A brief, confused silence fell. Veronica's smile faltered, just slightly. Trevor glanced between us, sensing something had shifted but unable to identify what. Then Diane chirped, "Who wants Harrison to carve the brisket?" And the moment passed. They went back to their conversations, their laughter, their perfectly maintained world. But something in me had fundamentally changed. For the rest of the afternoon, I didn't participate. I observed. I watched how easily they all moved through their assumed privilege, how Trevor seamlessly blended with his family, occasionally throwing me an absent smile. I catalogued every slight, every dismissal, every moment I'd been spoken over or around in the past 7 years. Most importantly, I listened to the voice inside me that had been whispering for years. Now finally, it was loud enough to hear. "You deserve better than this." The voice wasn't angry, it was just done. By 4:30, when we gathered our things to leave, my decision was made. The only question was how to execute it. The drive home was silent. Trevor scrolled through his phone, occasionally reading aloud details about next week's golf outing. I stared out the window, already planning, already gone. When we pulled into our driveway at 5 p.m., he finally seemed to notice. "Everything okay?" he asked. "You've been quiet since lunch." I chose my words carefully. "Veronica's joke, about me disappearing. Did you think that was funny?" Trevor sighed. He unbuckled his seatbelt. "Don't start this again, Emily. Veronica was just being Veronica. You know how she gets at family gatherings." "You laughed," I said simply. "It was a joke." He opened his car door. "Not everything needs to be analyzed to death." He got out. The conversation was over. For him. That night, Trevor fell asleep by 10:30. Early golf the next morning. I lay awake beside him until 11. Then I got up, walked to my home office, opened my laptop, and began planning my disappearance. Not dramatically, not emotionally, methodically. By 3 a.m., I had a plan. By 6 a.m., I would execute it. And by that evening, Emily Ashford would cease to exist. To understand why I could leave so cleanly, you need to understand who I was before I became an Ashford, and what I gave up to try to belong. I met Trevor when I was 23. It was late fall, 2016. I was in my final semester at Georgia Southern University, working toward a degree in hospitality management. I'd earned a full scholarship plus work-study funding. Money was always tight growing up. My father, James Crawford, ran a small auto repair shop in Macon. My mother, Ruth, cleaned houses for wealthy families. She'd leave before dawn, come home after dark, smelling of other people's expensive cleaning products. I learned early that hard work mattered, that nothing was handed to you, that if you wanted something, you earned it. The country club job was my highest-paying work-study position, $15 an hour plus tips. I worked Friday and Saturday evenings behind the bar at member events. Trevor came in one November night with a group from his father's firm. He ordered a bourbon, neat. Then he noticed the book I had tucked under the register. "Hospitality marketing?" he said, reading the spine. "Business major?" "Hospitality management," I corrected, smiling. "I'm graduating in December." That's impressive. He leaned against the bar. Most people I know graduated without ever cracking a textbook. I laughed. Must be nice. It was, he admitted, but maybe not as useful. We talked for 20 minutes between my other orders. He was charming, self-deprecating about his privileged upbringing, genuinely curious about my studies. When he asked for my number, I hesitated. I could tell from his clothes, his watch, his easy confidence. He came from money. Real money. But he seemed different from the other club members, less entitled, more interested in substance than status. I gave him my number. 3 months later, we were inseparable. He'd drive the 2.5 hours from Savannah to see me on weekends. We'd get coffee at the campus shop, walk through the small downtown, talk for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about the pressure of being the Ashford heir, the expectations, the predetermined path. I told him about working 2 jobs to afford textbooks, about my mother's arthritic hands from years of scrubbing floors, about wanting to build something meaningful in hospitality. "You're the most real person I've met," he said once, tucking my hair behind my ear. "Everyone in my world is performing. You just are." I fell in love with who he was away from Savannah, away from his family. I should have paid attention to that distinction. We got engaged 6 months after graduation. The ring cost more than my entire student loan debt. I should have felt excited. Instead, I felt vaguely uneasy, like I was signing a contract I hadn't fully read. We married a year later in 2018. Diane planned most of it. "You're so busy with your little event job," she'd said, patting my hand. "Let me handle the details. I know how things should be done." My mother came to one dress fitting. She sat quietly in the corner of the boutique while Diane directed the attendant to adjust, pin, take in, let out. On the drive home, my mother asked, "Baby, are you happy?" "Of course," I said automatically. She didn't look convinced. The first major sacrifice came 4 months into our marriage. I received a call from the Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta. They wanted me for an assistant manager position in their events department. $52,000 a year. Benefits, clear promotion track. It was everything I'd worked toward. I was ecstatic. When I told Trevor that evening, his face fell. "Atlanta?" he repeated. "It's only a 3-hour drive," I said quickly. "We could make it work." "Emily." He took my hands. "I need to be near my family. Dad's grooming me to take over parts of the business. He's 58. This is time sensitive." "What about my career?" "You'll find something in Savannah," he assured me. "We're building a life together. That matters more than any single job." I wanted to argue, but he looked so earnest, so certain this was the right choice. And I'd been raised to believe that marriage meant compromise. So I turned down the Ritz-Carlton. I accepted a position at a small event venue in Savannah called The Pearl. $34,000 a year, $18,000 less than Atlanta. When I mentioned it to Diane at Sunday dinner, she smiled. "Oh, The Pearl, how quaint. At least now you'll understand how real events are done, dear." As if the Ritz-Carlton wasn't real. As if my degree, my scholarship, my years of work weren't real. Trevor squeezed my hand under the table. His silent signal, "Don't engage." So I didn't. I just smiled and changed the subject. That became my pattern. Smile, nod, change the subject. The second sacrifice was financial. By 2019, I'd saved $43,000. It had taken me 6 years of careful budgeting. Some came from work, some from leftover scholarship funds I'd invested conservatively. It was my safety net, my proof that I could stand on my own. That year, Veronica launched a startup, a hospitality app connecting venues with vendors. She needed seed funding to show outside investors that the family believed in her. At a family dinner, Harrison turned to me. "Emily, you understand the industry. What do you think of Veronica's concept?" I gave honest feedback. The idea had potential but needed refinement in the user interface. Diane smiled warmly. "See, Veronica? Even Emily thinks it's good." 2 weeks later, Veronica asked me directly, "Would you want to invest? Family investment shows we have confidence. It'll help us secure the real money." I hesitated. $43,000 was everything I had. Trevor encouraged me. It's family. We support each other. That's what the Ashfords do. I invested $28,000. The startup folded 18 months later. Veronica moved on to a job at her father's firm without missing a beat. When I gently asked about the investment, she looked genuinely confused. "That's what family does, Emily. We support each other's dreams." Pause. "Besides, you didn't really need that money, did you? Trevor makes enough for both of you." I did need it, but my needs had never been the priority. That same year, Trevor made some investment mistakes. His words: $15,000 in credit card debt. He was embarrassed to tell Harrison. "Dad will think I'm irresponsible," he said, pacing our bedroom. "This could affect my position at the firm." So I paid it. With the last $15,000 in my account, my balance went to zero. But I was still lucky to be part of this family, still fortunate to have married into the Ashfords. The third sacrifice was harder to measure. It happened in tiny increments over 7 years. I planned every family event: Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas brunch, birthday celebrations, anniversary parties. I'd spend days preparing, coordinating caterers, arranging flowers, selecting wine pairings that matched Diane's preferences. When things went perfectly, the Ashfords always know how to throw a party. When something went slightly wrong, Emily's still learning how we do things. My name appeared in criticisms, never in compliments. I started changing how I dressed. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would draw attention or seem like I was trying too hard. I adopted their vocabulary, their speech patterns, their opinions on restaurants, wine, art, politics. I laughed at inside family jokes that excluded me by definition. I became smaller, quieter, less. My mother called 6 months before the barbecue. "You sound different, baby girl," she said. "Like you're not really you anymore." "I'm fine, Mama. Just busy." "You used to call me Mom," she said softly. "Now it's Mama. Like you're trying to sound more refined." I hadn't even noticed. "I'm just tired," I said. She paused. "Tired of what?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to say. Tired of disappearing. The pattern was always the same at family gatherings. Veronica would correct my pronunciation. "It's Pinot Grigio, Emily, not Pinot Grigio. Don't worry, you'll learn eventually." The table would chuckle. Trevor would say nothing. Harrison would explain basic business concepts, prefacing them with, "Now you might not know this, but in finance..." I had a degree in business hospitality. But he assumed I needed remedial lessons. Diane would make wardrobe suggestions framed as concern. "That color is lovely on you, dear, but perhaps something a bit more understated for the club? We don't want to look like we're trying too hard." I was always seated with the elderly relatives who couldn't hear well, or the distant cousins visiting from out of town. Never at the main table during business discussions. Never included in the real family dynamics. I became infrastructure, necessary for functions to run smoothly, but invisible as a person. I remember who I was at Georgia Southern, president of the Hospitality Management Student Association. I organized campus networking events. I had clear opinions and wasn't afraid to voice them. I had friends who valued my input. I had professors who saw my potential. I had confidence. My college roommate Jenna visited 3 years into my marriage. We met for coffee in downtown Savannah. "Em," she said carefully, studying my face. "What happened to you?" "What do you mean?" "You used to be the most confident person I knew. You'd walk into a room and command attention without trying." I laughed it off. "I grew up. That's what happens." "No." She shook her head. "You're shrinking, like you're trying to take up less space." "That's ridiculous," I said. But that night, I cried in the bathroom while Trevor watched television in the next room. Because Jenna was right. I was disappearing, and I was complicit in my own erasure. By the summer of 2023, I'd become a ghost, going through motions, performing the role of Emily Ashford, while the real Emily Crawford died a little more each day. My client list at work had dwindled. I'd stopped pitching creative ideas because they were always not quite right for the venue's aesthetic. My friendships had atrophied. I rarely saw people from college. The few Savannah friends I'd made were Trevor's friends' wives. Women who tolerated me but never quite included me. My professional confidence had eroded to almost nothing. I'd look at my work and second-guess everything. The color palette, the table arrangement, the timeline. What if Diane thought it was tacky? What if Veronica made a cutting comment? What if Trevor was embarrassed? I'd stopped trusting my own judgment. At 23, I'd known exactly who I was. At 32, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. So when Veronica said, "If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice," she wasn't being cruel. She was being honest. In their world, I was already invisible. The real me had disappeared years ago. All that was left was the performance of Emily Ashford. And that night, after the barbecue, I decided the performance was over. That night, Trevor fell asleep by 10:30. He had an early tea time with his father. 7 a.m. He needed rest. I lay beside him in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to his steady breathing. At 11 p.m., I got up. I didn't turn on lights in the hallway, just moved quietly to my home office and closed the door. I opened my laptop. The screen's glow felt harsh in the darkness. I pulled up a fresh browser window and typed, "Apartments Charleston SC." My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. I searched methodically. One-bedroom apartments, month-to-month leases, furnished options, price ranges I could afford on my salary alone. Then I searched. Divorce lawyer, Savannah, Georgia. I opened a notepad document and began listing everything I'd need. Bank accounts, separate finances, documentation of joint assets, my personal documents, items that were unquestionably mine. By 1 a.m., I had 12 tabs open. Apartments, legal resources, job listings in Charleston hospitality, moving truck rentals. By 3 a.m., I had a rudimentary plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark office for a long moment. This was real. I was actually doing this. By 6 a.m., I'd hear Trevor's alarm. He'd kiss me goodbye, drive off to golf with Harrison, and then I'd begin. I went back to bed at 3:30. Trevor never stirred. I didn't sleep, I just waited. At 6 a.m., Trevor's alarm went off. He showered quickly, dressed in his golf clothes. I pretended to still be asleep. "Love you," he murmured, kissing my forehead. "I'll be back around 3. The front door closed at 6:15. His car pulled out of the driveway. I counted to 60. Then I got up and called Jenna. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "Em, it's 6 in the morning. Are you okay?" "I need help," I said. "I'm leaving Trevor, today." Silence. Then, "What do you need?" Not, "Are you sure?" Not, "Have you thought this through?" Not, "Maybe you should wait." Just, "What do you need?" "A place to stay tonight," I said, "and someone to help me pack." "I'm in Charleston," she said. 2 hours. I'm leaving now." "Jenna, don't do anything until I get there," she interrupted, then paused. "Actually, no. Do whatever you need to do. I trust you." Those words, "I trust you," I hadn't heard them in so long. "Thank you," I whispered. "I'll bring coffee," she said, "and boxes. See you at 8. Jenna arrived at exactly 8 a.m. with 3 large coffees, packing tape, and a stack of flattened boxes. "Where do we start?" she asked, setting everything on the kitchen counter. "Bedroom," I said. "Only what's mine." We worked methodically. Clothes from my side of the closet, not the dresses Diane had suggested I buy. Not the outfits Trevor preferred, just the pieces that felt like me. My laptop, my phone charger, external hard drive with my professional portfolio, photos of my parents, my grandmother, my college graduation, nothing with the Ashfords, my grandmother's handwritten peach cobbler recipe, carefully tucked into a folder. When Jenna held up a decorative vase from the living room, I shook my head. Diane gave us that for our first anniversary. But you like it, Jenna said. No, I corrected quietly. I learned to like it. She put it back without another word. By 11 a.m., we'd filled 4 boxes and 2 suitcases. My entire life, distilled to what fit in my car. While Jenna organized items in the garage, I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. I pulled up our joint bank account. Balance, $47,200. I did the math twice to be certain. Half was $23,600. I logged into my personal account, the one I'd maintained separately throughout our marriage, despite Trevor's suggestions to simplify into joint accounts. I transferred exactly $23,600, not a penny more. Then I pulled up our shared bills spreadsheet. Mortgage payment due next week, $1,500. My half, $750. Utilities average, $200 monthly. My half, $100. I wrote a check for $1,850 and left it on the counter. My share of upcoming obligations, paid in full. Jenna watched from the doorway. You could take more, she said quietly, after everything you put in. No, I said, 50-50. I want them to have 0 legitimate complaints. You're being too fair. I'm being strategic. I documented every transaction, screenshots, spreadsheets, a clear paper trail showing I'd taken only what I was legally entitled to. At 1 p.m., I sat down to write the letter. I kept it simple, clinical. Trevor, I need time away to reevaluate our marriage. I've taken only what is mine and contributed my share to outstanding bills. Please respect my need for space and do not contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. Emily. I printed it and set it on the kitchen counter. Next to it, I placed a second sheet of paper. If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. Veronica Ashford. July 23, 2023. Ashford Estate Summer Barbecue. Witnesses, approximately 35 to 40 guests. Just the facts. Date, location, context. Then I took off my wedding ring. The diamond caught the afternoon light. I set it on top of the letter. It felt lighter than I expected. At 2:30 p.m., Jenna and I stood in the driveway. My car was packed. Everything I truly needed fit in the trunk and back seat. You ready? Jenna asked. I looked back at the house. White suburban colonial, perfectly manicured lawn. Trevor's car would pull in at 3 p.m. He'd walk inside and find it all. The empty closet, the letter, the ring. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. Jenna got in her car to lead the way. I followed in mine. We drove through familiar Savannah streets, past the country club where I'd met Trevor, past the Pearl, where I still worked, past the turnoff to the Ashford estate. Each mile marker felt like weight lifting from my chest. When we crossed the state line into South Carolina, I took my first full breath in what felt like years. The Welcome to South Carolina sign passed on my right. I was no longer in Georgia, no longer in Ashford territory. For the first time in 7 years, I was making a decision purely for myself. Not for Trevor. Not for Diane, not for the family, just for me. I checked into a modest hotel in Charleston at 5 p.m. Nothing fancy, just a clean room with a firm bed and working air conditioning. The kind of place the Ashfords would never consider. It felt perfect. I texted my mother. I'm safe. I left Trevor. Please don't share my location with anyone. I need time. I love you. Her response came within 30 seconds. Baby girl, I've been waiting for this call. I'm here when you're ready. I texted Jenna. Thank you for everything. I'll call you tomorrow. Then I turned off my phone. I knew what was happening back in Savannah. Trevor would arrive home at 3 p.m. He'd call my name, walk through the quiet house. He'd find the empty closet first, then the letter, then the ring. By now, he'd be calling, texting, panicking. But I didn't need to see it, didn't need to hear it. I took a long shower, put on clean clothes, ordered room service, and I slept for 9 hours straight. No dreams about trying to become someone I wasn't. No anxiety about tomorrow's family obligation, just sleep, deep, dreamless, free. The next morning, I briefly turned on my phone. 47 messages from Trevor. I scrolled through without opening them, just reading the preview text. 6:47 p.m. Where are you? 7:15 p.m. Call me, this is ridiculous. 8:30 p.m. Emily, come home so we can talk. 9:45 p.m. My mom is worried, at least let her know you're safe. 11:20 p.m. You're being incredibly selfish right now. 1:30 a.m. Fine. Take your space. I have Tokyo in 3 days anyway. We'll talk when I get back. I read through them all. Not once did he mention Veronica's comment. Not once did he acknowledge his failure to defend me. Not once did he ask what he might have done wrong. It was all about my overreaction, my timing, my selfishness. I sent one text to my mother. I'm safe. I'll call you in a few days. Please tell no one where I am. Then I turned the phone off again. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Charleston hospitality job listings I'd bookmarked 2 nights ago. The challenge had been accepted. Now came the hard part. Building a life where my presence actually mattered. Charleston welcomed me with 3 days of steady rain. Jenna had found me a month-to-month furnished studio in her neighborhood. 500 square feet, creaky wood floors, a bay window overlooking a small courtyard. After the sprawling suburban house I'd shared with Trevor, it should have felt claustrophobic. Instead, it felt like a cocoon. It's nothing fancy, Jenna apologized as she helped me carry boxes up the narrow stairs. But the landlord doesn't ask questions and the location is great. I set down a box and ran my hand along the kitchen counter. Worn, but solid. It's perfect, I said. It's mine. That first week was pure survival mode. I opened a new account at a local credit union. Not one of the major banks where the Ashfords had connections. Somewhere small, anonymous. I set up mail forwarding through Jenna's address. No direct trail leading to me. I bought a new phone with an 843 area code, Charleston's number. A clean break from my old Savannah line. I updated my LinkedIn profile carefully, removed any projects obviously connected to Trevor's network, highlighted my independent work at the Pearl. Experienced hospitality professionals seeking operations management opportunities in the Charleston area. Professional, vague, no mention of Savannah. Within 10 days, I'd applied to 15 positions. 3 responded with interview requests. One of them was the Grand Palmetto. The Grand Palmetto was a boutique hotel and event venue in downtown Charleston. Historic building, 32 rooms, an event space that could host up to 150 guests. The owner, Catherine Hughes, was 55 with silver-streaked hair and the most direct manner I'd encountered in years. Our interview was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. I arrived 15 minutes early. Portfolio prepared, references ready. Catherine met me in her office overlooking the harbor. I don't care about your resume, she said immediately, waving away the folder I'd pulled from my bag. Resumes, tell me what you think I want to hear. I hesitated. Show me work you did because you couldn't not do it, she continued. Personal projects. Things you created for yourself. I pulled up a folder on my tablet I hadn't opened in 5 years. Concept designs for events. Experimental color palettes. Layout ideas that were impractical but beautiful. Things I'd created late at night when inspiration struck, before I'd learned to second-guess everything. Catherine studied them in silence. She zoomed in on details, scrolled slowly. Finally, she looked up with those sharp blue eyes. You've been hiding, she said. It wasn't a question. These are good, really good, but they're old. Why did you stop? The honest answer came out before I could filter it. Because where I was, being visible meant being criticized. She nodded once. When can you start? The offer was operations manager, $58,000 a year. Performance bonuses tied to event revenue. Potential equity options after 2 years of proven results. It was $24,000 more than I'd made at the Pearl. I started the following Monday. In my second month, I found Dr. Susan Winters. She specialized in family dynamics and marital trauma. Her office was in a converted house near the university, warm lighting, comfortable chairs, none of the clinical coldness I'd expected. "Tell me why you're here," she said in our first session. I told her about the barbecue, about Veronica's comment, about leaving. "That comment wasn't the cause of your departure," Dr. Winters observed in our third session. "It was the catalyst," I agreed. "Tell me about the first straw," she prompted, "not the last one." That question unlocked 7 years of memories. The first time Trevor said, "You wouldn't understand," about a business discussion. The first time Diane adjusted my clothing without asking permission. The first time Veronica laughed at something I said, and everyone joined in. "What did you do when these things happened?" Dr. Winters asked. "Nothing," I admitted. "I thought that was how they showed love." "And now? Now I know that wasn't love." I paused. "That was tolerance. And tolerance isn't enough." We met weekly, 50-minute sessions that left me emotionally drained but incrementally stronger. Unpacking 7 years of subtle erosion took time, but I was finally doing the work. By month 4, I was working 60-hour weeks at the Grand Palmetto. Each successful event rebuilt my confidence brick by brick. Guests thanked me directly, not through layers of family filter, just straight acknowledgement. My ideas were implemented without lengthy justification. Catherine would ask my opinion and then actually use it. The feedback was direct but constructive. After one particularly flawless wedding, the bride found me checking final details near the kitchen. "You made our day perfect," she said, eyes bright with champagne and happiness. "Thank you so much." Simple words, but directed at me. Not credited to some family legacy or institutional reputation. Just, "You did this. Thank you." I realized it was the first time in 7 years someone had directly thanked me for my work. Not through Trevor. Not deflected to the Ashfords. Not minimized as helping out. Just recognized. Month 4 brought a promotion. Catherine called me into her office on a Tuesday afternoon. "Emily, you've transformed our operations in 4 months," she said without preamble. "Client satisfaction is up. Repeat bookings increased. You've trained staff to think proactively instead of reactively." She slid a folder across her desk. "Senior Operations Manager, $67,000, effective immediately, plus restructured bonus tied to quarterly performance." That was $9,000 more than my current salary. "Thank you, Don't thank me," Catherine interrupted. "You earned this. The question is, do you know your value?" I paused. For 7 years, I'd been told my value was conditional, tied to how well I adapted, how quiet I stayed, how little space I took up. "Yes," I said, "I'm starting to." "Good," Catherine said, "because I'm going to need you to know it with absolute certainty for what comes next." Month 7 changed everything. Catherine asked me to stay after work one evening. "I'm thinking about expanding," she said, pulling up property listings on her computer. "There's a historic venue that just went into foreclosure. Beautiful bones, harbor views, needs extensive renovation." She turned the screen toward me. The Marianne Estate. Even in the distressed listing photos, I could see its potential. "I want a partner," Catherine continued, "not just an employee, someone with vision and operational expertise." "I don't have capital for investment," I said immediately. "I don't need your money," she replied. "I need your vision and work ethic. Sweat equity. You contribute expertise and management. I'll handle the investor funding." Why me? Because you care about every detail like it's your own. She smiled. And it will be your own. 30% equity stake in exchange for managing the acquisition and renovation. I stared at her. That's a significant offer. It's a significant opportunity for both of us. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, I said. By month 10, we'd closed on the Marianne estate. Purchase price plus renovation budget, $380,000. Funded through Catherine's investor network. I managed the entire project. For 3 months, I practically lived at that property, meeting with contractors, selecting finishes, redesigning the layout for optimal event flow. Walking through the gutted space for the first time, Catherine asked, "Can you see it?" I looked at water-stained walls, broken chandeliers, peeling wallpaper. "Garden ceremony space here," I said, pointing to the back terrace. "Remove this interior wall to create flow between cocktail area and reception hall. Harbor view windows as the focal point." "You don't just see the space," Catherine observed. "You see what it should be." "That's what I've always done," I said quietly. "I just never got to do it for myself before." The renovation took exactly 3 months. We opened in early August. The first wedding booked within a week. Then another. Then 5 more. Within a month, we were booked solid for the next 18 months. By month 13, August 2024, I was unrecognizable from the woman who'd fled Savannah. I owned 30% equity in the Marianne estate. My combined income between that and my senior operations role at the Grand Palmetto was approximately $95,000 annually, nearly triple what I'd made in Savannah. I'd cut my hair to a shoulder-length bob with subtle caramel highlights. My wardrobe had shifted from Ashford-approved neutral to professional Southern chic. But the biggest change was internal. I stood differently, held eye contact, voiced opinions without the old anxiety of immediate contradiction. In month 11, I'd met Nathan at a friend's dinner party, Dr. Nathan Price, emergency room physician at the medical university, kind, direct, genuinely interested in what I had to say. On our first date, he asked about my work. "I co-own an event venue," I said, "and manage operations for another property." "That's impressive," he said. "How long have you been in Charleston?" "Almost a year, fresh start." "Running from something or toward something?" I didn't hesitate. "Both, and I'm exactly where I need to be." He smiled. We'd been together 6 months now, easy, respectful. He valued my time, my opinions, my autonomy. Everything felt fundamentally different. The divorce had been finalized in April. Trevor signed without contesting. Straightforward asset division negotiated through lawyers. His only personal communication was a brief note included with the signed papers. "I still don't understand, but I won't fight you anymore." He didn't need to understand. I did, and I understood perfectly. By August 2024, Emily Crawford had rebuilt herself completely, not into someone new, into who she'd always been before she started shrinking to fit someone else's life. Veronica had said if I disappeared, no one would notice. She was right. The person who disappeared was Emily Ashford, the performance I'd maintained for 7 years. The person standing here was Emily Crawford. Confident, successful, visible. And Charleston was paying very close attention. I'd accepted Veronica's challenge in a way she never anticipated. I disappeared from their world entirely and built my own. Now, standing in my office at the Marianne estate, reviewing bookings that stretched into 2026, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in what I'd survived, in what I'd created. And in exactly 4 days, Veronica would discover what happened when you challenge someone to disappear, because her wedding venue had just burned down, and the only available replacement in a 100-mile radius was mine. 6 weeks before Veronica's wedding, fate intervened. The mansion on Forsyth Park, Savannah's most prestigious venue, suffered a kitchen fire in early July. No injuries, but significant structural damage. The venue was unusable for the foreseeable future. Veronica's $60,000 wedding, scheduled for August 17th, was suddenly homeless. I heard about it through industry contacts. The hospitality world is small, news travels fast. Her wedding planner, Sylvia Morrison, went into immediate crisis mode. Every premium venue in Savannah was already booked for peak August weekends. Sylvia expanded her search radius. 50 miles, 75, 100. Nothing available. Finally, someone in her network mentioned a new property in Charleston. The Marianne Estate. Stunning renovation, harbor views, glowing early reviews. And according to the online calendar, one miraculous Saturday in August showed available. August 17th. The inquiry came through our website contact form on a Wednesday afternoon. I was reviewing quarterly financials when our receptionist, Maria, forwarded the email. High-budget wedding inquiry, she noted. $60,000 total budget, August 17th. Wedding planner sounds desperate. I opened the email. Client names, Veronica Ashford and Justin Canterbury. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Catherine walked past my office, then backed up when she saw my face. Everything okay? I know this client, I said carefully. Personally. She came in and closed the door. Bad history? You could say that. Do you want to decline? I could. Easily. Professionally. No one would question it. But something in me wanted this. Not revenge. Closure. No, I said slowly. I want to accept. Catherine studied my face. You're sure? She's coming to my venue, I said. On my terms. Yes, I'm sure. I typed out the response carefully. Professional, standard pricing, clear boundaries. Dear Ms. Morrison, we can accommodate August 17th. Venue rental is $18,000 for a Saturday in peak season. Full service packages available upon request. Please review the attached contract and service menu. All coordination will be handled through your office. The owner maintains limited availability for direct client contact. Best regards, the Marianne Estate Management. The contract required signature from E. Crawford, owner/operator. My maiden name, not Ashford. 2 days later, the signed contract arrived. Veronica had agreed to everything. Price, terms, communication protocols. She had no other choice, and she had no idea who owned the venue. Maria brought me the executed contract that Friday. $18,000 secured, she said happily. This'll be our biggest booking yet. Yes, I said quietly. It will be. For the next 6 weeks, all coordination happened through Sylvia. Veronica wanted to discuss floral arrangements directly with the owner. Maria politely explained the owner wasn't available, but that I would personally oversee all details. Veronica wanted to tour the property a second time. We scheduled it for a Tuesday when I had a site visit in North Charleston. She never saw me. Every email, every phone call, every question was filtered through professional channels. I reviewed every detail personally. Floral proposals, menu selections, timeline, setup diagrams. Not to sabotage, to perfect. Because the Marianne Estate's reputation mattered more than personal history, and because I wanted her wedding to be flawless. I wanted her to see what I was capable of when I was finally visible. 1 week before the wedding, I sat in Dr. Winter's office for my regular Thursday session. How are you feeling about Saturday? She asked. Surprisingly calm, I said. Why surprisingly? Because a year ago, the thought of facing them would have paralyzed me. She nodded. And now? Now I realize they're just people. People whose opinions no longer define me. Do you think they'll recognize you? Eventually, yes. I'm planning to be visible during the reception. How does that feel? I considered. Like closing a circle. Not in anger, just completion. Dr. Winters smiled. That's growth. I chose my outfit carefully that week. An emerald green dress, sophisticated but distinctive. The kind of dress Emily Ashford would never have worn to an Ashford family event. Too bold, too noticeable. Exactly right for Emily Crawford. Nathan offered to attend as support. "Do you want me there?" he asked over dinner Tuesday night. "I need to do this myself," I said, "but thank you for offering." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Call me when it's over?" "I will." He understood boundaries, respected autonomy. Everything felt different with him. Saturday morning, August 17th, 2024, exactly 1 year and 3 weeks after the barbecue. I arrived at the Marianne estate at 6 a.m. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m. Reception at 5:30. I walked through every space personally. Garden setup, perfect. Chairs aligned. Arch positioned for optimal harbor view. Cocktail terrace. Bartenders briefed. Appetizer stations positioned. Reception hall. Table settings flawless. Lighting programmed. Sound system tested. Every detail exactly as specified. At noon, I gathered the staff. "Today needs to be perfect," I said. "Not because of who the bride is, because the Marianne estate doesn't do anything less than perfect." Our head coordinator, James, nodded. "Everything's ready, boss." "Good. I'll be visible during the reception, professional, courteous." "And if they recognize you?" Maria asked quietly. She was one of the few people who knew my history. "They will," I said. "That's the point." At 1 p.m., I retreated to my office. The window overlooked the garden ceremony space. I watched from there as guests began arriving. Black SUVs, luxury sedans, valet parking filling up. Then I saw the Ashford family cars. Harrison's Mercedes, Diane's Lexus, Trevor's BMW. My breath caught, just for a moment. Then I exhaled slowly. They were just people. Wealthy, privileged, accustomed to getting their way. But just people. At 2 p.m., the ceremony began. I watched from my office window. Veronica walked down the garden aisle in a dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. Beautiful, radiant. Trevor stood as best man beside Justin. He looked thinner than I remembered, tired around the eyes. Diane dabbed at tears in the front row. Harrison looked proud. The ceremony lasted 30 minutes. My team executed it flawlessly. Perfect timing, smooth transitions, no visible hitches. As guests moved to cocktail hour, I allowed myself a small smile. Professional satisfaction. This was excellent work. At 4 p.m. during cocktail hour, I needed to check on catering flow in the main hallway. I moved quietly, reviewing setup. That's when I heard Diane's voice carrying from the Harbor View terrace. She was speaking to a cluster of guests I didn't recognize. "The venue is absolutely divine," she was saying. "Whoever owns this estate clearly understands true elegance, so much better than some of those newer establishments." One of her companions asked, "Do you know the owner?" "No, everything was coordinated through the wedding planner. But clearly they come from good breeding to create something this refined." I stood in the hallway, just out of sight. Good breeding, not hard work, not vision, not expertise. Breeding. I smiled slightly. Some things never changed. At 5:15, I returned to my office and changed into the emerald dress. Hair touched up, makeup refreshed, professional armor in place. Catherine texted, "You've got this." Nathan texted, "Thinking of you, proud of you." I looked at myself in the small mirror behind my desk. The woman looking back was Emily Crawford, confident, successful, ready. At 5:30, reception dinner service began. I gave it 15 minutes to settle, then I walked out of my office, into the reception hall, into view. Time to be seen. I walked into the reception hall at 5:45 p.m. Dinner service was underway. Guests at their assigned tables, waitstaff moving smoothly between courses. I moved through the room with professional purpose, checking details, catering flow, wine service, timing, legitimate reasons to be visible. That's when Veronica saw me. She was mid-bite at the bride's table, center of the room, fork halfway to her mouth. Our eyes met across 30 feet of reception space. I watched recognition dawn on her face in slow motion. Confusion first, then doubt, then certainty. Emily? The word came out loud enough that surrounding tables paused their conversations. Trevor's head whipped around from the family table 10 feet away. Diane's champagne glass froze mid-air. Harrison stared, confusion written across his face. I walked calmly toward the bride's table, professional smile in place. Good evening, I said pleasantly. I'm Emily Crawford, owner of the Marianne Estate. I wanted to personally ensure everything meets your expectations tonight. Silence. Complete silence at both the bride's table and the Ashford family table. Veronica's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You own this place? Co-owner, yes, I confirmed. We acquired and renovated the property last fall. You're actually our 47th wedding this year. I paused, letting that sink in. We're very proud of what we've built. The number felt right, specific, real. Veronica was still processing, unable to form coherent words. Justin, her groom, looked between us with growing concern. Trevor stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. Emily? His voice came out rough. You look... This is unexpected. I turned to him, cordial but distant. Hello, Trevor. Congratulations to your family. The ceremony was lovely. We've been trying to reach you, he said. The lawyer said everything was handled appropriately through legal channels. I interrupted smoothly. Our divorce was finalized in April. Diane's sharp intake of breath was audible across the room. Finalized? She repeated, voice tight. I nodded. Yes, clean division of assets. Everything settled. I didn't elaborate, didn't justify, just stated facts. Harrison pushed back his chair, attempting to reassert some paternal authority. This is highly irregular, he blustered. If we'd known the owner was... I cut him off, professionally, politely. You'd have what, Mr. Ashford? Chosen a different venue? He hesitated. Sylvia contacted 12 properties before finding us. We were Veronica's only available option for August 17th. I paused. This is a standard business transaction. Your daughter is receiving excellent service at fair market rate. That's what matters. The power dynamic had completely shifted. Harrison had built an empire on negotiations and leverage. Here, he had neither. Diane appeared at my elbow, her practiced social smile firmly in place. Emily, darling, she said with forced brightness, what a surprise to see you. We had no idea you were involved with this venue. No reason you would, I replied evenly. I've been in Charleston for 13 months, building my business. How enterprising, Diane managed. The word hung in the air. Enterprising, the kind of compliment that wasn't quite a compliment. I smiled slightly. Yes, it has been. Veronica finally found her voice. Well, she said defensively, it's a beautiful venue. I suppose we should... Thank you. No need, I said. You're paying full price, $18,000 for venue rental, standard rate for peak August Saturday. I let that number land. Then I looked directly at Veronica. You once said something at a family barbecue. Do you remember? Her face went pale. You said if I disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. The surrounding tables had gone completely quiet. You were right about one thing. I did disappear. From a life where I was invisible. I gestured to the venue around us. The flowers, the lighting, the flawless execution. What you're experiencing tonight, every detail you see. This is what I'm capable of when I'm actually seen. Beat of silence. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a wedding to run. Enjoy your evening. I turned and walked away, calm, dignified, unbothered. I heard Trevor call after me, but I didn't stop, didn't turn around, just kept walking, professional, composed, exactly as I'd planned. From my position near the bar, I watched the Ashford family table descend into whispered chaos. Diane leaned in close to Harrison. Urgent conversation. Trevor kept staring across the room at me. Veronica was struggling to maintain her bride composure while Justin tried to understand what just happened. Other guests had noticed the tension, curious glances, murmured speculation. But dinner service continued. My staff maintained perfect professionalism. Whatever personal drama unfolded, the event would be flawless. At 6:30, Trevor found me near the kitchen entrance. Emily, please, can we talk? Privately? This is a professional event, Trevor. We have nothing personal to discuss. Our lawyers settled everything. But I didn't know. He gestured helplessly. About all this. You never told me you wanted to own. I told you many things over 7 years, I said quietly. You weren't listening. I walked away before he could respond. Second time tonight. It was getting easier. At 7 p.m., Harrison rose to give his father of the bride toast. I was standing near the back of the room with Catherine, who'd arrived to observe the event execution. Family is everything, Harrison proclaimed, raising his champagne glass. We Ashfords stick together. We support each other. We lift each other up through all of life's challenges. The irony was not lost on me. Catherine leaned close. You okay? More than okay, I whispered. I'm free. She squeezed my hand. The guests applauded Harrison's toast, clinked glasses, resumed conversations. The wedding continued as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. At 8 p.m., Veronica and Justin had their first dance. At Last, by Etta James. Classic, romantic, predictable. I stepped out onto the terrace for air. The harbor stretched dark beyond our property, city lights reflecting on water. I heard footsteps behind me. Diane. May I speak with you? She asked. I nodded. She joined me at the railing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. This venue is extraordinary, she finally said. You've clearly found your place. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. Veronica's comment last summer, Diane continued carefully. At the barbecue, that was unkind. It was honest, I replied. In your family's context, I was invisible. I just needed to find a context where I wasn't. Diane nodded slowly. She didn't apologize, didn't make excuses, just stood there for a moment, then walked back inside. The closest thing to accountability I would receive, and I found I didn't need more. At 8:30, Nathan arrived. His medical conference had ended that afternoon. We'd timed his arrival for after the critical confrontations. He found me on the terrace. How are you holding up? He asked, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. I'm good, I said, leaning into him. Really good. They treated you badly. Yes, but that's not who I am anymore. He kissed my temple. No, you're the woman who built this. Inside, guests were moving to the dance floor. DJ transitioning to upbeat music. Want to go in? Nathan asked. In a minute, I said. I just want to stand here and appreciate what this feels like. What does it feel like? I thought about it. Like I finally proved something. Not to them, to myself. At 9:30, I watched the cake cutting from my office via security camera. Veronica and Justin cutting into a 5-tier masterpiece. Guests applauding, flashes from phones. Professional satisfaction settled over me. This was excellent work. Regardless of personal history, we'd executed a flawless event. Catherine appeared in my doorway. Why are you hiding up here? Not hiding, I said, observing. And? It's a beautiful wedding. We did good work. We didn't do anything, Catherine corrected. You did this? I smiled. Yeah, I did. At 10 p.m., there was a soft knock on my office door. Trevor. Can I come in? I considered saying no, but I was curious what he'd say when his family wasn't watching. Briefly, he entered and closed the door, stood awkwardly near the bookshelf. I was wrong, he said without preamble. About everything. You were never the problem. I know, I said simply. I've been in therapy, he continued, since you left. Dad thought it was unnecessary, but I needed to understand. That surprised me. I'm glad, I said sincerely. My therapist helped me see how I failed you, how I didn't stand up for you. Not against Veronica, not against Mom, not even against my own expectations that you'd just adapt to whatever we needed. He ran a hand through his hair. I keep thinking about that barbecue, about Veronica's joke and how everyone laughed, how I laughed. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't understand what you meant when you said challenge accepted, and I thought you were being dramatic. And now? Now I realize you were declaring independence from all of us. We sat in silence for a moment. Is there any chance? He stopped, started again. Not now, but eventually. Is there any chance for us? I looked at him. At the man I'd loved for 8 years. I felt affection, compassion, even a whisper of the old attraction. But the connection was severed. Not by anger, by growth. No, Trevor. We both needed to become different people. I'm glad you're discovering who you are outside your family's expectations. But we're done. He nodded, tears forming in his eyes. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I waited so long to see myself. We shook hands. Civil. Final. He left the office. The door closed behind him. The last chapter officially over. At 11 p.m., the reception concluded. Guests filed out to valet. Veronica and Justin departed in a vintage car with tin cans and streamers. The Ashford family loaded into their vehicles. No one looked toward my office window. No one waved goodbye. Perfect symmetry. They'd ignored my presence when I joined their family. They'd ignored my presence tonight. The difference was, now I didn't care. They were irrelevant to my life. At 11:30, I walked through the empty venue with Catherine and Nathan, candles burning low, flowers still fresh, evidence of a perfectly executed event. Another successful wedding, Catherine said. The best one yet, I agreed. Nathan wrapped his arm around my waist. You created something beautiful tonight. We did, I said. The whole team. Stop deflecting, Catherine said gently. You led this. Own it. I smiled. Yes, I did this. Not in spite of them. Without them. And that made all the difference. Sunday morning, I woke up in my Charleston apartment to sunlight streaming through the bay window. I made coffee and sat at my small kitchen table with my laptop. There was an email from Sylvia, the wedding planner. Subject, thank you from the bride. I opened it. Emily, Veronica asked me to pass along. Thank you for making the day beautiful, despite everything. I stared at the message for a long moment. Despite everything. As if my competence existed in opposition to our history. As if professionalism was surprising given the circumstances. I closed the email without responding. I didn't need her thanks, didn't need her acknowledgement. The wedding had been flawless because that's the standard I held myself to, not for her, for me. Instead, I opened the Marianne Estates Instagram account. I selected 3 professional photos from the wedding, the garden ceremony, the reception hall, the cake cutting, beautiful images, expertly captured by our photographer. I wrote a simple caption, Congratulations to Veronica and Justin, wishing you a lifetime of seeing each other clearly, professional, classy, unbothered. I hit post. Within an hour, we had 50 new followers, 3 venue inquiries, 2 messages complimenting our work. Catherine texted, Perfect caption. You're a class act. Nathan texted, That's my girl, proud of you. I sat back with my coffee and allowed myself a small smile. This was success, not revenge, not vindication, just the quiet satisfaction of work well done. Monday morning, I was back at my desk by 8 a.m. Emails to answer. Vendor invoices to approve. A site visit scheduled for Wednesday. Normal operations. My phone rang at 9:15. Unknown Charleston number, I answered. The Marianne Estate, this is Emily. Hi, my name is Rebecca Chen. I was a guest at the Ashford wedding on Saturday. I'm getting married next June, and after seeing your venue, I have to ask, do you have any availability? I pulled up our calendar. June has a few Saturdays open. When were you thinking? June 14th? I clicked through. That's available. Would you like to schedule a tour? Absolutely, as soon as possible. We booked her for Thursday afternoon. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair. This was the third inquiry directly from Saturday's wedding. Word of mouth, referrals, organic growth. The business was thriving. Not because of the Ashford name, in spite of it. No, not even in spite of it. Completely independent of it. That afternoon, Catherine stopped by my office. I've been thinking, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. We should expand the partnership structure. What do you mean? You've proven yourself 10 times over. I want to increase your equity stake to 40%. You've earned it. I blinked. Catherine, that's non-negotiable, she interrupted. You transformed this property. You built the reputation. You deserve ownership that reflects that contribution. I don't know what to say. Say yes. I laughed. Yes, thank you. Good. My lawyer will draw up the paperwork. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. You know what I admire most about you? What? You never made yourself smaller to make others comfortable. Not here, not with me, not with clients. I did once, I said quietly. For 7 years. But not anymore, Catherine said. And that's what matters. Wednesday evening, I had dinner with my mother at a small restaurant near the College of Charleston. She'd driven up from Macon, first time visiting my new life. We ordered shrimp and grits, sweet tea, pecan pie for dessert. You look different, baby girl, she said, studying my face across the table. Different how? Like you can breathe again. I smiled. I can. I'm proud of you, she said, reaching across to squeeze my hand. For leaving, for building this, for knowing your worth. You taught me that, I said. You worked 2 jobs to give me opportunities. You never let anyone make you feel small. I also stayed quiet when I should have spoken up, she said. When Trevor's family treated you poorly, I saw it. I should have said something sooner. I wouldn't have listened, I admitted. I needed to see it myself. Well, you saw it. And you did something about it. She smiled. That takes courage. We talked for 2 hours. About Charleston, about the business. About Nathan. About everything I'd built in 13 months. When we said goodbye in the parking lot, she hugged me tight. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, she whispered. I believed her. Friday afternoon, I received a LinkedIn message. From Trevor. Emily, I know we said our goodbyes on Saturday, but I wanted you to know I resigned from Ashford Capital this week. I'm moving to Seattle, starting over in a city where no one knows my family name. My therapist thinks it's healthy. I think it's necessary. You were right. We both needed to become different people. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. T. I read it twice. Then I typed a brief response. Trevor, I'm glad you're finding your own path. I wish you well. Emily Short, kind, final. I meant it. I did wish him well. His journey wasn't my concern anymore, but I could hope he found what he needed. That evening, Nathan and I took a walk along the Battery. The sun was setting over the harbor, families strolling, tourists taking photos. You've been quiet today, he observed. Just thinking, I said. About? About how different everything is. A year ago, I was terrified, uncertain, starting from zero. And now? Now I own 40% of a thriving business. I have work I'm proud of, people who value me. I squeezed his hand. A relationship where I don't have to shrink to fit. You never had to shrink, Nathan said. They just convinced you that you did. That's the thing about gaslighting, I said. You don't realize it's happening until you're already small. We walked in comfortable silence for a while. Do you regret it? Nathan asked. Any of it? I thought about that. I regret the time lost, but I don't regret learning the lesson. Which is? That the opposite of disappearing isn't being noticed. It's becoming so fully present in your own life that external validation becomes unnecessary. He smiled. That's very wise. I had a good therapist. We laughed. The following Tuesday, I was reviewing our booking calendar when I noticed something. We were fully booked through December 2025, 18 months of confirmed events. The Marianne Estate had become one of Charleston's premier venues in less than 6 months of operation, not through Ashford connections, not through old money networks, through excellent work, word of mouth, authentic reputation. I'd built something real, something mine, something that would exist long after the people who'd dismissed me had forgotten my name. Looking back now, I understand what Veronica's comment really was. Not cruelty. A gift. She challenged me to disappear. I did. But not in the way she meant. I disappeared from a life where I was diminished, where my worth was conditional, where love came with terms and requirements. And I reappeared in a life where I was valued, where my contributions mattered, where I could finally breathe. The best response to being invisible isn't demanding to be seen, it's finding the light where you already are. Sometimes the people who make you feel small are actually showing you that you're in the wrong room. The answer isn't to fight harder for a seat at their table, it's to build your own table and make it beautiful. I learned that you can't negotiate with people who've decided you're disposable. You can only remove yourself from systems that require your erasure. And when you do, when you finally walk away from people who can't see your value, you discover something profound. You don't need them to acknowledge what you've built. You just need to keep building. 3 months after Veronica's wedding, I received a handwritten note, forwarded through our business address. The return address was Seattle. From Trevor. Emily, I drove past a coffee shop yesterday and thought of you. Not of us, just of you. The woman I met behind the bar at that country club. The one who was confident and clear about her future. I finally understand what you tried to tell me for 7 years. I wasn't listening. I'm learning to listen now. Thank you for having the courage to leave. It forced me to look at things I'd been avoiding. I hope Charleston treats you well. You deserve a life that sees you. Trevor. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Not to keep as a trophy, just as a reminder of who I'd been, who I'd become, and why the journey mattered. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, if you've ever shrunk to fit someone else's expectations, I want you to know something. You're not overreacting. You're not too sensitive. You're not asking for too much. You're finally seeing clearly. And that clarity is the first step toward freedom. The people who truly value you won't require you to disappear to make them comfortable. They'll celebrate the space you take up. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. If any part of this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, the life you're meant to live is waiting on the other side of the courage to walk away from the one that's making you small. You deserve a table where your presence is celebrated, not just tolerated. Build it. Take care.